What's going on, fourth grade? Welcome back to class. Please know that Mr. Reed misses you, but I'm still very, very excited to be teaching you guys today. I have a really fun lesson planned, and I think you guys are really going to love it. So, how we're going to start this off is I have one question for you guys to think about at home. And that question is, who makes the really important set of rules we all have to follow called our laws? Now, if you thought our government, you thought correct. Our government works really hard. They all work together to try and make a set of rules to keep us safe. Everyone in the country has to follow these rules, and they're called our laws. How they do that and what makes them special is that they're broken up into three separate groups. All three of these groups work together, and today we're going to learn a little bit about that. So, the first group we're going to talk a little bit about is our legislative branch. That group of people, they go to communities, they're a part of communities all across the country. They go to different states, cities, towns, places even just like Slippery Rock. Yeah, our small community. They talk to places just like that. People in those areas. And determine what we need. They talk to us and see what we need, what we think needs done. They take all of our ideas and take their smart minds and try to come up with things they think should be laws for our country. Once they find the perfect idea that they think this needs to be a law, once they find that, they work together with everyone in the legislative branch to figure out how to write it up, how to make it a law, how the law should sound. Once they do that, it can move on to the next branch. That does take a lot of hard work. It takes a long time for them to figure out those ideas. And there are a lot of ideas that are still being sorted through. It's a really important job. But once their job is done, it gets moved on to the judicial branch. What makes the judicial branch really fun is that those are our judges. They determine pretty much what's right and what's wrong in our country. Once the idea comes to them, now these ideas are called bills. So once the idea gets written down and given to the judicial system, then it's a bill. They look at this bill and they look at the rest of the rules we have in place, the rest of our laws we have in place, and determine if they follow the ideas of our country, if they follow the laws of our country. Now, if they don't, they're going to send it right back to the legislative branch and they are going to say, this law doesn't follow our personal ideas and our codes that we have in our country, our laws. But if they think it does, if they think that this is a good idea, maybe this should be a law, they're going to sign off on it and they're going to push it to the executive branch. Now, the executive branch has the final say. In our entire government, the head of the executive branch, that's the president. That's what makes them so important. The president has the final say in things that should be laws for our country. Once he looks at that, he's going to look at the bill that comes from the legislative branch and the judicial branch. And he's going to think, do I believe in this? Do I think this is a good law for our country? If he doesn't believe in it, he's going to veto it. Veto, yep, that's a new word for you guys. Veto is pretty much a big fancy word for I don't agree with it. I'm not going to sign off on it. I'm going to deny it. So if he vetoes it, it's going to go all the way back to the legislative branch. And they're either just going to maybe toss it out and say maybe this wasn't a good idea after all, or if they really believe in it, they're going to keep working on it, maybe make some adjustments, some tweaks to it, change it a little bit to try and get it back into the process of becoming a law. If the president does like it, however, He's going to sign off on it, and boom, now it is a law. Now, since we can't be in class, normally we'd maybe do a fun activity with this where I'd break you guys into groups, but I have 3 friends that are going to help me out. And these friends, they're going to represent the 3 branches of the government. And how we're going to show you guys this is we're going to try and make a rule for our house. These friends, they're my roommates. They're all going to work together to try and make a new house rule that they think will make living here better. So, representing our legislative branch, we have my roommate Parker, from Parker over here. Now, Parker's talked to everyone in the house, everyone who's visited the house, and he's looked at, is there anything we could do to change what's going on in the house to make things a little bit better for everyone? He looked at the kitchen sink and saw there were a lot of dishes in the sink. And a light bulb went off in his head. Bing! Went right off. And he said, I think it'd be a great idea. Listening to everyone who's been in this house, I think it'd be an amazing idea if everyone just did their own dishes. Now, Parker wrote that up. He wrote it and said, this should be a law. Everyone should do their own dishes. I'll leave it at that. Now, he created this bill. This idea has now became a bill, and now he's going to move it on to our next branch. Our next branch, does anyone remember who the next branch is after that? Now, if you thought judicial branch, boom, you got it correct. Our judicial branch is next. And my buddy James, right here, James is going to be our judicial branch. He's going to look at our house rules we have right now. Now, looking at those rules, he's looking through them, and he's looking at our bill. Our bill saying that everyone should do their own dishes. Now, after looking at both of those, James, what do you think? Now, James has now just told me that he thinks this does not go against any rule we have. He believes in this idea. He believes in this bill. And he thinks it should be a law. So now James signed on. Now James has now signed on the bill. He's going to push that to our next group. Now lastly, does anyone remember who the last group to get the bill is? Yes, the executive branch. Our executive branch is represented by my friend Lexi. Lexi, she's the head of the household right now. She's running the house. She has the final say. Now, Lexi's going to look at it, and she's going to think, is this bill, this idea that our judicial branch and our legislative branch believe to be a great idea for our house, is it what's best for our house? Now, we're going to let Lexi think for a second. We're going to let her think, is this a good idea? I'll whisper to her for a second. That's right. All right, so I just talked to Lexi, and it looks like she believes in this, and she's not going to deny it. Now, oh, wait. I didn't use the correct terminology. Does anyone remember what the correct word is for if the executive branch, the president in most cases, wants to deny a bill? Veto. Yep, you guys got it. She is not deciding to veto this bill. Now, if you don't veto the bill and she signs off on it, now it has become a law. This little bill, this little idea coming all the way from the legislative branch has made it through everything. Now it is a law. Now the executive branch has signed off on it, and now it's an official House rule. Now lastly, one of the last things that has to happen is that Lexi and the executive branch, one of their jobs is to enforce the laws. So enforcing a law means you have to come up with a punishment for it. hopefully this punishment won't have to get used because hopefully everyone just follows the rules. But I mean, as you guys know, if you don't follow the rules, things have to happen. So Lexi has to come up with an idea on what the punishment should be if you do not do your own dishes. So we're going to give Lexi a little bit of time to think about that. I'll give her a few seconds. I'm going to go back and talk to her. All right. So what do you think? All right, so you think it should be... You can't use the dishes? So, Lexi thinks that the rule should be if you don't do your own dishes, then you can't use the dishes. Some people might think this is pretty harsh, but it's not. It's not up to Lexi. Now it's up to James. Because the way the government works is the punishments are determined by the judicial branch. Once the executive branch has came up with the idea of what the punishment should be, the judicial branch has to decide if it's a proper punishment. Let's talk to James. James, what do you think? You as the judicial branch, do you think that the proper punishment for not doing the dishes should be you don't get to use the dishes? So you thinking that is proper? So you thinking this is good? All right, so I just got back from talking with James, and he thinks that it's a good punishment for it. So now it's all came together. All three branches, our executive, our legislative, and our judicial, have all worked together to create a law and how the law will be enforced. Now, hopefully, this law, it's a good law. I hope you guys enjoyed this. And now, just so you can work on this at home, on our online classroom, I'm sending home a sheet. This sheet is going to have the way you create a law on it, each branch working together. Now, with this one, the executive branch is going to be your parents. Don't try and pull one over on them and say, Mr. Reed said I can decide if it's a law. So, you guys are going to get this sheet, and you guys are going to be able to work with your parents and maybe your siblings if they want to be involved too, and maybe create your own house rules at home. Now to finish it off, I have a nice video for you guys that I'm going to pull up, and it's what Mr. Reed used to watch when he was in elementary school about how bills become laws. Now, if you guys want to stay on to watch the video, you can. The video is on our class website if you just want to watch it then. I'm going to start playing the video. I enjoyed class today with you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you next time.
As your body grows bigger,
Your mind gets smaller,
it's great to learn.
'cause knowledge is power. It's Schoolhouse Rocky, the chip on the block of your favorite schoolhouse rock.
I'm just a bill.
Whew, you sure gotta climb a lot of steps to get to this Capitol building here in Washington. Well, I wonder who that sad little scrap of paper is.
I'm just a bill. Yes, I'm only a bill. And I'm sitting here on Capitol Hill. Well, it's a long, long journey to the capital city. It's a long, long wait while I'm sitting in committee. But I know I'll be a law someday. At least I hope and pray that I will. But today I am still just a bill.
Gee, Bill, you certainly have a lot of patience and courage.
Well, I got this far. When I started, I wasn't even a bill. I was just an idea. Some folks back home decided they wanted a law passed, so they called their local congressman, and he said, "You're right, there ought to be a law." Then he sat down and wrote me out and introduced me to Congress, and I became a bill. And I'll remain a bill until they decide to make me a law. I'm just president to sign. And if he signs me, then I'll be a law. How I hope and pray that he will. But today I am still just a bill.
You mean even if the whole Congress says you should be a law, the president can still say no?
Yes, that's called a veto. If the president vetoes me, I have to go back to Congress and they vote on me again, and by that time you're so
By that time, it's very unlikely that you become a law. It's not easy to become a law, is it?
No, but how I hope and pray that I will. But today I am still just a bill. He signed your bill. Now you're a law. Oh, yes.
Hope you guys enjoyed that video. I'm looking forward to class with you next time. Have a great rest of your day and stay safe. Mr. Reed out.